Money is supposed to make sense. Numbers on a screen, neat columns in a spreadsheet, a balance that grows when you're careful and shrinks when you're reckless. For decades, we've been told that mastering money is a matter of discipline. Budget properly, track every expense, avoid small indulgences, and you'll win. Sounds logical, but it's a comforting myth. In reality, the average American works harder than ever while saving less than any generation before. Over 60% live paycheck to paycheck, including many earning more than $100,000 a year. Credit card debt in the United States has surpassed $1 trillion for the first time in history. Yet financial institutions, budgeting apps, and influencers keep promising that freedom is only a spreadsheet away. The paradox is clear. We have more tools, more advice, and more access to data than any generation before us. Yet more people feel out of control with their finances. The illusion of financial control is one of the great lies of the modern age. It convinces us that individual failure explains financial struggle, when in fact the system itself has been designed to keep us chasing stability that rarely comes. Budgeting was never invented for personal freedom. Its origins lie in control, not of individual lives, but of national and corporate stability. The rules we follow today were built in boardrooms and economic think tanks, not at kitchen tables. What began as a method for managing scarcity became a culture rooted in the fear of not having enough. This story isn't about learning how to save. It's about understanding why saving has become so difficult. Behind every paycheck, every expense, and every digital notification lies a web of incentives and behaviors that quietly dictate how money truly works. Most people believe they are managing their finances, but in truth, their finances and the systems around them are managing them. The illusion of control is comforting. It makes us feel responsible, capable, even moral. But the truth is more complex and far more human. This is the story of how budgeting really works, and why, despite our best efforts, we keep getting it wrong. To understand why budgeting feels broken, we need to go back, not to the age of credit cards or apps, but to the 19th century, when the concept of personal finance barely existed. For most people, money meant survival. Wages were paid in cash, expenses were physical, and saving was a privilege of the wealthy. The first budgets were never designed for individuals. They were created by governments and corporations. In 1820s Britain, the term budget referred to the Chancellor of the Exchequer's national spending plan, a literal leather bag of papers carried into Parliament. By the late 1800s, corporations adopted budgeting to forecast profits and control costs during industrial expansion. The purpose was simple. Money had to be tracked, planned, and justified. When this system crossed into private life, its meaning shifted, from control of production to control of behavior. In the early 20th century, as consumer culture expanded, banks and advertisers began shaping how ordinary people thought about money. The rise of installment credit in the 1920s changed everything. People could suddenly buy what they wanted before they could afford it. It felt like freedom, but it was the beginning of dependency. To manage this new complexity, families were told to budget, to record expenses, plan spending, and restrain desire. After World War II, the idea of the family budget became central to the American identity. The 1950s brought prosperity and advertising. Financial institutions, appliance makers, and even food brands tied budgeting to morality. A good household was one that saved, planned, and stayed within its means. Budgeting became not just an economic tool, but a moral code. By the 1980s, everything changed again. Deregulation of credit and the boom of consumer lending redefined the financial landscape. Easy credit became normal. Credit cards multiplied. Personal debt doubled within a decade. And the traditional budget, built for fixed incomes and predictable expenses, could no longer keep up. Software filled the gap. Quicken in the 1990s, Mint in the 2000s, and later You Need a Budget and countless others turned money management into digital data. They promised visibility and control, but in practice, they created vast databases of behavioral patterns and psychological profiles. The irony is undeniable. The very systems built to give people control evolved into mechanisms that profit from their loss of it. Each technological advance, from ledger books to mobile apps, made budgeting more automated and less emotional. Yet emotion is where all real financial behavior begins. The history of budgeting isn't a story of empowerment. It's a story of adaptation, people trying to survive within systems never designed for them. As the world changed, those systems stayed the same. And somewhere between the numbers and the screens, the human side of money, fear, desire, hope, was forgotten. If budgeting were just math, everyone would succeed at it. But money is never just arithmetic. It's emotion, identity, and psychology disguised as logic. Every purchase we make is shaped less by reason and more by feeling. Behavioral economists have spent decades proving this. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky called it loss aversion. The pain of losing $100 outweighs the pleasure of gaining $100. Richard Thaler described mental accounting, the irrational separation of money into categories. Saving for rent while spending freely on dining out, though both come from the same paycheck. Dan Ariely showed how anchoring, the first number we see, can distort every financial decision that follows. Budgeting tries to correct these biases with structure. But structure rarely defeats emotion. Humans evolved to seek immediate rewards, not delayed gratification. The instant pleasure of buying something new activates the same dopamine circuits as falling in love or winning a game. Feels good because it's supposed to. Saving, by contrast, offers no instant payoff. The brain releases no dopamine when transferring $200 into a savings account. Feels like deprivation, not success. This emotional imbalance is why most budgets fail. The system asks us to be rational in a world designed to provoke emotion. Advertising, social media, and lifestyle comparison constantly amplify desire, while the quiet satisfaction of saving goes unnoticed. The result is cognitive dissonance, the tension between what we know we should do and what we actually want to do. Studies by the American Psychological Association show that 65% of Americans cite money as their top source of stress. Financial anxiety alters decision-making, driving people toward short-term comfort. A $5 coffee can feel like control in a chaotic world. Skipping a bill can feel like breathing space in a system built on pressure. Each small decision compounds, not from ignorance but from emotional survival. Social comparison deepens the effect. On platforms like Instagram and TikTok, financial reality has turned into performance art. Seeing others win financially doesn't inspire discipline. It provokes envy and inadequacy. Neuroscience confirms that social comparison activates pain centers in the brain. The more we scroll, the more we spend to restore emotional balance. And then comes shame, the invisible tax of modern budgeting. Every overspend, every missed goal reinforces a sense of personal failure. But shame doesn't improve behavior. It paralyzes it. People stop looking at their finances entirely. That's why most budgets end not in success, but silence. Budgeting was meant to be a plan, but psychologically, it has become a mirror, one reflecting our fears, hopes, and insecurities. Shows who we wish we were, not who we are. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. We don't have a spending problem. We have a feeling problem. Until our financial systems address emotion as much as logic, they will continue to fail the very people who need them most. Every January, millions of people open new budgeting apps, download expense trackers, and make promises to finally get control. By March, nearly 80% have abandoned them. It's not because people are lazy or bad with money. It's because the system itself was never designed for how real humans think, feel, or live. The truth is, budgeting fails for the same reasons diets fail. It fights against human nature. The human brain isn't wired for long-term abstraction. We respond to immediate rewards, visible outcomes, and emotional signals. Saving for a distant future doesn't light up our dopamine system the way a quick purchase does. That's not weakness, it's biology. A 2023 study from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that even when people earn more money, over 60% still live paycheck to paycheck. Not because they don't know how to budget, but because their mental model of money hasn't adapted to the invisible pressures of modern consumption. The modern financial ecosystem is built on three silent forces: convenience, credit, and comparison. Convenience makes spending effortless. One click, one tap, one subscription renewal. Credit removes friction. It decouples action from consequence. And comparison turns spending into status. A social performance measured not in value but in validation. Social media accelerates all three. What used to be a private decision, how we spend our income, is now a public narrative. People budget for the image of a life, not the substance of it. Financial influencers promise freedom through minimalist spreadsheets, yet their message often reinforces shame, guilt, and unrealistic expectations. The budgeting industry itself profits from failure. Apps charge subscription fees. Banks collect overdraft penalties. Credit companies profit from late payments. The system doesn't want you to quit, it wants you to keep trying. Because your failure is profitable. A Harvard Business Review analysis revealed that companies selling budgeting tools see retention spikes when users feel guilt or anxiety about money, emotional triggers that keep them engaged. Budgeting becomes a cycle of self-blame, where each slip-up feels personal, not structural. But the truth is structural. Wages have stagnated since the 1970s, while the cost of living, housing, healthcare, education, has outpaced inflation by more than double. The average American household today spends nearly 65% of its income on non-discretionary expenses. You can't budget your way out of a system designed to extract. And yet, that's what most people are told to do. The illusion of control keeps the system running, convincing individuals that financial failure is a personal flaw, not a symptom of economic design. The hidden problem isn't that people can't budget. It's that budgeting, as we've been taught, was never meant to work in the world we live in now. To understand how budgeting really works, you have to look beyond the spreadsheet, into the machinery that defines what money means in the first place. Modern budgeting didn't evolve from household wisdom. It evolved from industrial capitalism. In the early 20th century, businesses began using budgets as management tools, instruments to control costs, forecast profits, and allocate labor efficiently. When personal finance advisors borrowed the term for families in the 1920s, they imported the same mindset. Control equals success. Efficiency equals virtue. But the human experience isn't a balance sheet. The assumption that financial behavior can be rationalized like corporate expenses ignores the emotional chaos of everyday life. Illness, family, uncertainty, desire. The financial industry quietly capitalized on that chaos. In the post-war boom, banks and advertisers discovered that aspiration was more profitable than discipline. Selling dreams, homes, cars, college, vacations, became an economy of its own. The message shifted from "live within your means" to "your means will expand." In 1958, Bank of America launched the first general-purpose credit card, the Bank AmeriCard, which later became Visa. By the 1980s, credit was no longer a tool. It was a culture. The economy grew not through savings but through debt. And with that, budgeting transformed. It stopped being a practice of restraint and became a performance of management, keeping debt under control, not eliminating it. The U.S. personal debt-to-income ratio climbed from 55% in 1980 to over 130% by 2007. Yet, during that same period, financial media celebrated consumer confidence as a sign of national health. Spending was patriotic. Frugality was fear. Technology took it further. Today, your financial behavior is data, a commodity sold to advertisers, banks, and platforms that use algorithms to predict when you'll spend next. Every budgeting app you open feeds a machine learning model that learns your weaknesses. What time you buy, what you delay, what you justify. This isn't accidental. It's behavioral economics weaponized for profit. The same psychology used to help people save more is used to make them spend faster. Every swipe, every click, every delayed notification, engineered to keep your money moving. That's how budgeting really works. Not as a private act of discipline, but as part of a feedback loop between you and the system. Your budget is data. Your data is profit. And your profit, for someone else, is the cost of your illusion of control. The question is no longer how to budget, but who benefits when you try. In today's economy, budgeting is not just financial, it's emotional branding. It's marketed as a lifestyle of empowerment, but it often masks exhaustion, anxiety, and quiet desperation. The modern illusion of budgeting is built on productivity culture. The belief that every problem can be fixed through optimization. Track more, spend smarter, hustle harder. The apps promise automation, yet the result is constant surveillance of your money, your habits, even your identity. The average American uses over 6 different financial apps. Each one claims to simplify your life, yet each adds another layer of analysis. Another reminder of what you're not doing enough of. You're not saving enough, not investing early enough, not optimizing your credit score. This endless chase mirrors the logic of social media itself. Engagement equals success. The budgeting system thrives on engagement, not peace. The goal is to keep you looking, checking, tweaking, believing that the next update, the next habit, the next hack will finally bring clarity. But clarity never comes, because the more you analyze your money, the less you feel in control of it. The illusion isn't in your numbers. It's in your expectations. Financial freedom as sold today is not freedom from work or worry. It's freedom to keep participating in markets, in platforms, in systems that define value on their terms, not yours. Money, once a means of survival, has become a measure of identity. The act of budgeting no longer represents stability. It represents self-worth. People no longer ask, "Do I have enough?" They ask, "Am I enough?" And that's the tragedy of the modern illusion. Budgeting has become not just a financial practice, but a moral one. We equate control with virtue and struggle with failure, even though the odds were never equal. The system doesn't need you to be financially literate. It needs you to believe that literacy alone is the solution. That's how the illusion stays intact, by making you chase a sense of control that the world no longer allows. The truth is that budgeting as we know it is outdated. Not because it's wrong, but because it's incomplete. Teaches arithmetic in a world of algorithms. Self-control in a system built on manipulation. Real budgeting is not about numbers on a page. It's about power. Who has it, who uses it, and who profits from your lack of it. You can't fix a system by managing its symptoms, but you can understand it. And that understanding changes everything. Awareness doesn't pay your bills, but it breaks the illusion that you're to blame for forces beyond your control. When you stop seeing money as a moral mirror, you start to see it as what it really is. A tool, a system, a story. And every story can be rewritten. The illusion of budgeting is control. The reality is design. And the design can change when enough people finally understand how money truly works. Because money isn't just currency. It's language. And learning to speak it fluently is how real freedom begins. A skyline fades into twilight. City lights pulse like data. Each window a life in motion. Somewhere someone's checking their balance. Someone else is skipping dinner to pay rent. Another person just clicked buy now. Not because they needed it, but because for a moment it made the world feel less heavy. And that's what money does. It connects us and divides us, gives us hope and takes it away, all in the same breath. Budgeting was never really about control. It was about understanding what we value, what we chase, what we trade for comfort. But somewhere along the way we began mistaking survival for success, and numbers for meaning. Every statistic is a story. Every dollar a decision. Every debt a dream deferred. The system we live in wasn't built overnight, and it won't change overnight. But awareness is a kind of rebellion. Quiet, invisible, powerful. Because when you see the structure clearly, you stop blaming yourself for standing in the wrong place. You start asking who built the floor. Budgeting doesn't make you free. Understanding does. If this story moved you, hit like. It helps YouTube share the story with others. Subscribe and hit the bell for new documentaries every week.